program is the Active Center.
Have you ever wondered what the recipe for a brand new country actually looks like? Well, today we're diving into the secret formula behind the United States. It's this incredible mix of old philosophies, some totally radical new ideas, and a revolutionary spirit that, honestly, changed the world forever. So, let's get cooking.
I mean, really think about it. This was the exact problem the American founders were staring down. They weren't just making a few small changes to an old system. No, they were starting from scratch, trying to come up with a whole new recipe for how a nation should work. And the answer they came up with? Well, it would change everything.
Okay, so at the absolute heart of this new recipe was this massive clash of ideas. For centuries, the world ran on this one concept, the divine right of kings. The idea that a king or queen's power came straight from God, and you just didn't question it. But this new, revolutionary idea was bubbling up, that a government's power comes only from the consent of the governed, from the people. It was the ultimate philosophical showdown.
Right, but a recipe this radical couldn't just appear out of thin air. The world kind of had to be ready for it. So let's take a look at what we'll call the ancient ingredients. These are the big historical shifts that first set the stage for this whole new way of thinking.
You can almost think of history as a slow simmer. You had Europe coming out of the Middle Ages, which was, a time of superstition and a really rigid social order. Then, bam, a series of game changers. The printing press arrives, making ideas easy to spread. The Renaissance brings back these old Greek and Roman ideals about democracy. And then the Protestant Reformation comes along and dares to challenge the absolute power of the church. Each one was a crucial ingredient getting tossed into the pot.
And seriously, do not underestimate the power of technology in this recipe. The Gutenberg printing press was basically the internet of its day. All of a sudden, radical ideas could be copied and shared on a massive scale, completely bypassing the control of kings and clergy. It was a total game changer. It let dissenting opinions go viral for the very first time.
The Reformation added another key piece to the puzzle, a public that could actually read. As people were encouraged to read the Bible for themselves, literacy rates just shot through the roof. So now, people couldn't just get new ideas from the printing press, they could read them, understand them, and most importantly, debate them. This created the perfect fertile ground for a revolution to take root.
So the historical kitchen was prepped and ready. Now it was time for the master chefs to step in. And I'm talking about the great European thinkers of the Enlightenment. These guys provided the core intellectual ingredients that would end up defining America's revolutionary recipe.
And when you talk about these master chefs, three names really stand out above the rest. You've got John Locke from England, and then Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Baron de Montesquieu, both from France. Their ideas would soon make the journey across the Atlantic and become the very foundation for a new nation.
All right, so the first and maybe most important ingredient is John Locke's concept of natural rights. And this was a truly mind-blowing idea for the time, that you are born with certain rights, like life and liberty, just because you're a human being. A king doesn't give them to you, a government doesn't grant them to you, they are yours, period.
Building on top of that, you get the next ingredient, the social contract. The basic idea is that we the people make a deal. We agree to give up a little bit of our freedom to a government, and in exchange, they protect our natural rights. But, and this is the revolutionary part, if the government breaks that contract, the deal is off. The people have the right to change it, or even just tear the whole thing up and start over.
And for the final core ingredient, Montesquieu gives us a really practical blueprint for the recipe, the separation of powers. It's a simple, brilliant idea. To stop any one person or group from becoming a tyrant, you just split the government's power into different branches. This created a built-in system of checks and balances designed specifically to stop the abuse of power.
Now, these incredible ideas from Europe didn't just stay in books. They crossed the ocean, and over here in the colonies, they got adapted, tweaked, and given a uniquely American flavor. This is where the recipe really starts to come to life.
So who was the person who served these big ideas up to the American public? Well, that was Benjamin Franklin. He was the ultimate popularizer. Through his newspapers and his famous almanacs, he took these complex, high-minded European philosophies and basically translated them into simple, practical ideas that the average colonist could get behind.
So for example, take John Locke's powerful summary of our natural rights. He said we all have the right to life, liberty, and property. This phrase became a huge deal in the colonies, but it was about to get a very famous American remix.
And there it is. Thomas Jefferson totally channeling Locke, takes that phrase for the Declaration of Independence and gives it this brilliant, uniquely American twist. By swapping out property for the pursuit of happiness, he did something profound. He made the promise of this new nation more aspirational, more about human potential, and just unforgettable. Okay, so we've got the historical context, we've got the philosophical ingredients, and we've got the American adaptations all mixed together. It was finally time to follow the recipe and serve up a brand new nation.
This is where the ideas finally explode into action. That principle of consent of the governed turns into the famous rallying cry, "No taxation without representation." So, when the British government ignored that and imposed taxes like the Stamp Act, it led to protest. Think of the Boston Tea Party. And when those protests fell on deaf ears, it led to all-out revolution.
You know, the Declaration of Independence wasn't just a breakup letter with England. It was so much more. It was the ultimate Enlightenment document. It took that social contract theory and put it directly into practice, making a clear, powerful argument that when a government becomes tyrannical, the people have the right, in fact the duty, to get rid of it.
But here's the thing. This recipe wasn't for a single meal that you eat once and you're done. The ideas and flavors of the American Enlightenment had this incredible lasting legacy, and they continue to shape our political debates and the American identity to this day.
So let's just quickly recap the core ingredients of this American recipe. You've got the idea from Locke that power comes from the people. You've got the structure from Montesquieu to prevent tyranny. You have Jefferson's promise of natural rights. And from thinkers like Thomas Paine, this belief in reason over dogma, which led right to the separation of church and state. Every single piece was essential.
And here's what might be the most surprising legacy of all. These same foundational ideas, they actually branched off to create our modern political landscape. The focus on natural rights and classical republicanism, that became a cornerstone of modern conservatism. And at the same time, the emphasis on individual freedom and the social contract, that helped shape modern liberalism. It's wild to think that both sides of the aisle are drinking from the exact same intellectual well.
Which, of course, leaves us with a huge question for our own time. This recipe was designed in the 18th century for a small nation of farmers. So, as we face the incredibly complex challenges of the 21st century, from global pandemics to artificial intelligence, are these same ingredients still the right formula for success? Well, that is the ongoing experiment of America.